Another day, another commentary about the joys of watching the Vancouver Canucks. Because ultimately, this is a talking point that I think has been hammered down to some capacity over the past few months, but it was talked about again on Sportsnet 650, and I thought it was interesting enough to dive into and make a video about. Because today we are talking about Vancouver Canucks superstar, $11.6 million caliber 45-point scorer, Elias Pettersson, and diving into some comments made about him by Don Taylor as a special guest on the recent edition of... what show was this? Canucks Central. That's what it was. Right. Canucks Central with Satyr Shah and Dan Riccio. This was from Tuesday, May 27th, and it's from the episode on Sportsnet 650's page called Frank Saravalli on Rising Trade Prices and Don Taylor on the Abbotsford Canucks impact. This, of course, is going to be in the description, but also in the description is an article from CanucksDaily.com. I like this article because it transcribes what Don Taylor said on the program about EP. That's the value we are getting out of this piece here. So, yeah, dramatic title aside, this will also be in the description if you want to go out there and read the rest of this piece yourself. But this article dives into how Elias Pettersson did have a rift between himself and JT Miller, and how it was one of the biggest stories in the league. It was so well covered, everybody was trying to get more info and tidbits about this piece of conflict here. Pettersson went on to have a pretty strong finish to the 24-25 campaign, registering 10 points in 11 games before suffering a season-ending injury against JT Miller's New York Rangers in late March. With his solid play that month, rumors began to ramp up again about the potential of the Swedish forward being moved this summer, something Patrick Allvin didn't rule out when speaking with reporters in April. "I'd be stupid not to keep my options open," he had said. Now yes, I kind of do forget about that sometimes, the fact that Elias Pettersson did have a good end to his season in terms of the point production. I mean, from March 7th all the way to March 20th, the guy had a point in almost every single game that he had played. He was over a point per game, if you average it out. He only had 7 minutes of time on ice played against the Rangers on March 22nd, and he didn't play another game in the season. It's kind of weird, though, because I'm using TSN's website to look at the game log. Elite Prospects is still kind of glitched out on their Elias Pettersson statistics because there are two Petterssons on the team, which makes it a little bit wonky. This is their Elias Pettersson, the regular Elias Pettersson game log. As displayed on Elite Prospects, it shows that Pettersson only had 2 points in his last however many games of the year this is, and it says that he had played all the way till April 16th, which... look, a lot of Canucks fans, we recognize that is not what happened. Elias Pettersson did not play that many games. So there still needs to be some coding done on the Elite Prospects website for Elias Pettersson and Elias Pettersson. But ultimately, that is what happened. He did produce at a higher rate to end off the year. But because of that, it's like, hey, he was pretty okay. Do you want to start thinking about trading him again? If teams think about his injury recovery and how he's going to train hard in the offseason and how he had a strong finish to the end of the season, then maybe it's a possibility that teams actually think about him in that way. Beyond Pettersson's play on the ice to finish the season, though, behind the scenes it was a tough year for him, dealing with his poor start to the campaign, that riff with Miller and his name being in rumors, but according to Don Taylor of Donnie and Dolly, this is where things get interesting. The 26-year-old reportedly didn't get along well with the Sedin twins. Don Taylor said this on Canucks Central the other day. You know, Pettersson's personality, I shouldn't say his personality, but he has to play. Whatever swagger he has, whatever confidence he has, whatever ego he has, and I'm sure it's pretty big, they all are, play to it and make sure you come back in the best shape of your life. And you know what? This has precedent to the organization. You hear things like he doesn't get along with Henrik and Daniel, and he's not listening to them, whatever the case may be. But man, I'm telling you guys, those two provide a wonderful, exceptional example for Elias Pettersson regarding conditioning. They weren't in great shape when they first came to the Canucks, their skating wasn't great, and they worked their asses off to improve their conditioning. And you know, Daniel did a marathon the other day, to the point where they were the best conditioned athletes in the entire Canucks organization, Taylor said during an appearance on Canucks Central and Sportsnet Radio. And between the Sun Run, what was the one that Daniel did recently? The Oak Bay Half Marathon? Something like that? Plus, of course, the fact that Henrik and Daniel were some of the best Canucks ever. Combine that with the fact that they are the leaders that they were and they contributed to the community in the ways that they did. These guys are top-tier human beings, and it always feels weird to acknowledge that Elias Pettersson and Henrik and Daniel don't really get along all too well. That whatever guidance or advice that these legends would give isn't really being received or taken by Elias Pettersson. I would like to even say, I get it, you know? Like, I think I'm a pretty sympathetic person. Most scenarios, I can generally understand other people's points of views, but, like, I don't understand this one. Petey not trying to take every piece of advice and soak it all up from two Vancouver legends. Like, I know it's not even really something that he's thinking about here, but if Elias Pettersson decided, yeah, okay, I'm going to start listening to the Sedins, I'm going to get guidance from them, I'm going to train hard with them, if that gets out into the media, fans start seeing, oh yeah, look at that, Petey's taking advice from the Sedins. Everybody's going to love this guy even more. They're going to start cheering for him even more. They're going to start thinking, okay, yes, this is the change that needs to happen. You know what's the biggest problem with Elias Pettersson, other than his inconsistency and potentially his ego or whatever, this and that? It's the fact that he is like Bambi out there on the ice. He's always falling. He's always slipping around. He doesn't hold himself well when it comes to those board battles, and that is where he suffers the most. You know who is good at avoiding those situations and staying on their feet? Henrik and Daniel Sedin. Maybe it wasn't like that early in their careers. I don't know. I was not born when they were drafted, so I didn't really see much of the early 2000s Hank and Dank. But when these guys were Lindsay, Hart-caliber players in the National Hockey League, they were strong on their feet. They were able to stick around. They were able to hang around. They weren't rough and tough. They weren't going to go out there and bash your teeth in. They weren't the top-tier enforcers like some other NHL players could be, but they were sturdy. And that is something that I think Petey needs the most out of. We've seen this be a problem in his game ever since he debuted in 2018-19. So, Elias Pettersson, I mean, I don't know if you're listening to this video. He's probably not. But if he is, just turn to Hank and Dank, man. Like, what's the problem here? I don't think those guys are, like, bad guys. There's probably a likability factor between Henrik and Daniel Sedin and Elias Pettersson. There probably is some sort of shared connection they could have about something. They're all Swedish, for crying out loud. So with that in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this overall idea, how Pettersson and the Sedins, apparently they don't really get along, and what are your thoughts about that? What are your opinions on Pettersson's future and him training to get a little bit further into the weeds of what he is capable of accomplishing as an NHL caliber athlete? Do you think that this is the right path for him to go down? And do you think it will eventually get to a better spot with Vancouver? Let me know in the comment section all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99, and bye.